Orlando, Florida. You're now listening to the OZone Podcast, the voice of Orlando Magic fans. Join us every week for a unique fan perspective on all of the latest Magic news and updates. The show starts now.
Welcome back to another episode of the OZone Podcast, brought to you by DraftKings and part of the Basketball Podcast Network. We're your hosts, Al, myself, Anthony, and today is May 20th, which is one day post the play-in tournament, which was really interesting. A lot of drama went down yesterday, so it was really good to see that postseason basketball is back into play. And in today's episode, we're going to talk some post-season interview from Jeff Weltman, some Tankathon simulation that we're going to try out for the first time today, talk a little Coach Clifford and some other things around the Magic. And joining us to do that is Twitter personality Nabil. And you may not know, if you don't know him by his name, then you definitely know him by his Twitter handle, which is the Lando. What's up, sir?
Oh, no, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. Excited. If you haven't interacted with the Lando, by far one of the most respected Twitter followers out there. If you're not following him already, you should. If you don't hear what he talks about the game, you should. You're already late, but it's not too late because we're gonna get to know you a little bit. So definitely, Nabil, introduce yourself.
So my name is Nabil Diab. I made the Lando account a few years ago. Pretty much just to have a community to talk to with about the Magic. Your family and friends don't really want to hear about this stat and that stat and, what Coach Clifford said after the game. So it gave me a community to talk to, and it's just blown up over the years, and it's been fun.
Yeah, so I've had my Instagram page for a couple of years now, and that's kind of the premise of why I started mine, because none of my family cared about hearing me rant about the Orlando Magic. So it gave me a kind of a little venting outlet. What made you become an Orlando Magic fan? Of all the teams that you can choose, why Orlando? Why the Magic?
So I had a couple of family friends when I was like really young that would get us like really nice tickets to the game. So I'd be like 3-4 years old, sitting like 5 rows up, and this was like late 90s Magic basketball when like the arena was just popping, and I just had great experiences, and it just made me into a fan from when I was really young. And then probably when I was like 6 or 7 years old, like the T-Mac years came into play, and that just made me fall in love with the game pretty much from that point on.
That's a beautiful era.
Yeah, so I'm going to assume then that, and I'll ask you the question, but who was your favorite player at that time? I would assume it's T-Mac, but I'm going to ask you,
Sure.
who was that player that made you fall in love with the Magic and the game?
For sure, T-Mac, man. I mean, like, in my opinion, he's one of the best to ever play the game. I mean, Kobe himself said he's literally the hardest player he's ever had to guard. So, I mean, he was an amazing player to watch when he was in Orlando. And I also had some like personal experience with him that was like really exciting for me when I was a kid. So I used to play outside my house every day in a T-Mac jersey, literally every single day. Like I would just swap through them. And one day this like big white dude, like jacked, came like from across the street, and he just waved at me, and I ran. I was like, yo, who the heck, who's this guy? And maybe like 2-3 days later, it happened again. And this time my dad was with me. I was like, yo, this guy, I don't know who this guy is. He's trying to kidnap me. And then I was like, yo, whoa, chill. He's like, I'm Tracy McGrady's personal trainer. And I was like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, I live across the street. I see you playing in, Magic gear and stuff. Like, I just wanted to give you some memorabilia. Like, I got a couple of jerseys for you. I was like, yo, that's crazy. And then like maybe like a month later, T-Mac literally pulled up to my house. And that was like a crazy experience for me as like a little 7-year-old. He just like came by before a game, and he just like signed my jersey and like was like, yo, watch the game tonight. Thanks for supporting, yada yada. And that same night, he kicked the ball. I don't know if you remember, but he kicked the ball into the stands at halftime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like that whole night was just like unforgettable.
Nice. I mean, listen, if Tracy McGrady has to be your favorite player, because there's only one right answer. It's not like you're going to be a fan of, Vince Carter or anything. No, I'm just messing. I was a big Vince Carter fan, so I tease him.
Fan, man. Yeah.
So I'm gonna sit out on this one because I'm outnumbered today, so I'm not even gonna talk about that topic.
No, I hear you, man. Vince Carter's the man too, man. I mean, like, there's never been a better in-game dunker than VC, bro. But as an Orlando fan, I mean, it's got to be
Yeah,
T-Mac, bro.
for sure, no doubt. How
Yeah,
about all NBA though? So it's T-Mac your favorite player of all time, or you have a like
yeah, yeah.
NBA player that?
I mean, Michael Jordan, just like anybody else, is like one of the biggest influences, like on any, I think, like basketball fan that's in their 20s or 30s or older. But like T-Mac, I would definitely say is like number one for me. But after that, if I just have to like go away from Magic players, um, I like a lot of different players, man. I love Kevin Garnett, like back in the day, just the intensity he used to play with. That's the kind of stuff I love to see from a player. Just really cares about winning and stuff. Steph Curry nowadays is my favorite player to watch. I mean,
Look,
you don't even have to
look
be
at
into
the smile.
basketball.
Look at the smile from Al.
That's your boy.
That's my guy, man. That's my guy. As
Yeah.
Vince got older, I kind of transitioned to Steph.
Yeah, yeah. No, man, Steph's the man, man. Like, even if you're not really into basketball, you can enjoy watching Steph Curry. He's like the Patrick Mahomes of basketball.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, man. For me personally, it was hard for me to like any player outside of the Magic. Like
Hmm.
once I got into the whole, because growing up, my dad was a big time Shaquille O'Neal fan, like massive,
Right,
and then
right.
that's kind of how I got introduced to the Orlando Magic. And then once Shaq went to the Lakers, my dad went to the Lakers also. He became a big
No.
Lakers fan, and I just couldn't switch. At that point, I was watching so
Yeah.
much Magic basketball. But at that age, I was so young that I really didn't like grasp the game that much. So for
Right.
me, Tracy McGrady was the hook. And
Right.
Tracy McGrady was that dude at that time. He was arguably the best basketball player. During his prime, during his Orlando time. So,
Yeah.
it was really really hard for me to like any other team. And even now, as fun as the Steph Currys and the LeBron James are fun to watch, if you're not wearing the Magic uniform, yeah, it's hard for me to root for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
It's really really
I
hard.
100% on board with that, man. I almost like hate every player that's not on the team sometimes.
Right.
You know what
Exactly.
I mean? Especially if like one little thing happens. They don't even have to insult the team, but like Trey Young could like shimmy after a
That's all
three
it
pointer. I'm
takes.
like, oh yeah, that's it.
That's
That's
it.
Can't
it.
like Trey no more.
We put him on the revenge list with
That's
Kuzma.
it. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, bro. We're pretty hostile on Magic Twitter. Anytime someone says anything, we
Yeah,
hop right on them, man.
it's a gang. It's a gang
Yeah.
community. Now this past year, obviously there's been a lot of highs and a lot of lows. If thinking back, what would be your collective thoughts on how last season went? Would you consider it successful? Would you consider it, trials and tribulations? How would you view it?
I'd say it's a blessing in disguise, because I think that, it felt really crappy in the beginning, just going through all those injuries after starting 6-2. I know a lot of us felt like, we could be like that fourth, fifth seed in the East, and that just didn't work out. And Markel going down was just like, it hurts on two levels. Just like you want to see him develop and you want to win, and he's obviously fits into both those categories, and so that sucked. But you know, I think Vooch and Gordon and Evan getting traded was a blessing in disguise, and that would have never happened had we been like successful, and didn't lose all those games prior to the deadline. Um, and so I think now having all these young guys in place, that one thing that's special about these young guys, I think, is that they all play well together, and no one's really trying to be the man. I really only think RJ Hampton has that, like, I mean, Cole Anthony too, a little bit, just that, like, give me the ball and I'm gonna score type mentality. But I think these guys can play well together. Like, if I'm to compare it to like the last time we had a lot of young guys, with like Fournier and Tobias and Oladipo and Vucevic and Elfrid, it felt like all of them kind of wanted to be the man, and things just sort of like came to a point where like they couldn't all like be on the team, and obviously we traded the wrong guy, both the wrong guys in Oladipo and Harris. But um, if I'm gonna compare that young team to this young team, I think that, a guy like Okiki's super unselfish, Isaac's super unselfish, Fulton's super unselfish, Lendo's super unselfish. You know what I mean? Like, they all can play off the ball a little bit. Like, they don't need the ball in their hands to perform. And so I'm really excited about this young team. So like I said, it was a blessing in disguise. It was like that team beforehand making the playoffs 2 years in a row, and probably would have made the playoffs again, especially the way the East fared out this year. I mean, the Knicks, not to say the Knicks are like, not that great, but I think the Magic would have won just as many games, honestly, if they were healthy. But that not working out is okay, because I think the ceiling of that team, like, how far are you going to go when, like, Vucevic, Evan, and Gordon are your top three guys on most nights? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, not far at all.
you're going to go win a first round, maybe, if you're the fourth seed and you play the fifth, like, but you're not beating Boston, you're not beating Brooklyn, you're not beating Philly, just in my opinion. So I think it's good that we started with some new guys.
Yeah, and I think so. I know, following up to your statement right now, then the trade deadline, of course, a lot of things happen. A lot of young guys on the team now. So,
Right.
based on what you're telling us right now, so you're happy with the outcome. You're excited for the next kind of era of Magic basketball. Then
I am, man. I am, and I'm excited to see how the draft goes. To be honest, like, I'm like the last guy to talk to about the draft. I'm not qualified enough. I don't pay enough attention to, like, the college games. I usually just rely on everyone else on Magic Twitter to be like, yo, who do we like? Who should we draft? Obviously, I've heard all the names. Cade Cunningham is apparently the best, and Jalen Green, Jalen Suggs. Look, man, I've seen it like so many times to where, like, the guys who get hyped don't even end up being, like, decent role players sometimes. And, like, then
That's
the
true.
guys you sleep on just pop up. So I really don't know. I don't really think anyone else knows. Even the scouts don't really know. But I think, Weltman and Hammond getting Cole and Chuma were impressive. I think those guys, like, 15th. I think both of them were 15th. No, or am I wrong?
So Chuma was 16th, and
16 and
I'm thinking Cole Anthony 15.
15, right? So I mean, to
Yep.
get those guys at that stage of the draft, it's pretty good. Like, so I want to see what they do with the top three pick. Hopefully, Jonathan Isaac too. I think the only player you can criticize is maybe Mo Bamba, at the fifth pick. But I'm excited to see who they get and add to this mix. I think they have something going in mind with the guys they have already, unselfish guys who could play together. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see where we go.
Yeah, and this front office, when we first brought them in, they were brought in to with the knowledge of them being able to draft so well and be able to maximize their draft stock. And you bring up a really good point, being able to get Chuma, being able to get Cole Anthony, and mind you, these are players that, their draft stock kind of hurt a little bit because they experienced their injuries. And I'm not sure if you saw the postseason interview that Jeff Weltman had, but the whole entire time when he was talking, it seemed as if this was like the easiest interview that he's ever done. He was in a good mood. He was trying hard not to, like, laugh and smile the whole time, because he knew, like, we're in a really, really good position.
Honestly, I think the team in general has been in the best mood I've seen it in, and since, like, the Dwight days. Like, all these guys are, like, really happy to play with each other. Even the guys, like, the veteran guys like Gary Harris and stuff, like, it looks like he loves being on the team. Even Terrence, who's like 30 years old, probably wants to win a championship. But yeah, everyone just seems happy, and the young guys all get along. Like I said, if I were to compare it to the last time we had a bunch of young guys, I just think the cohesiveness on and off the floor with these guys is just, like, way different.
But you see, that's the part that kind of scares me a bit. And it might have been because I was very naive, but I thought that, Oladipo, Nikola Vucevic, Tobias Harris, like, I thought Elfrid Payne, that nucleus, that they were going to be, disruptive, once they got a little older and things were starting going. And that obviously didn't pan out because, we're a little impatient. But you're right. The players, they look like, and granted, they haven't spent that much time with one another. With one another. You have Wendell Carter barely on the team, RJ Hampton, but they really do, and you can see it. They don't hide, how much fun that they're having.
Yeah,
And
man.
especially with as much losing as we did post the trade deadline, the fact that they're still playing basketball and having fun doing that. And there were a lot of epic moments, past that deadline.
Yeah.
That it's refreshing for sure.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. I like where we're going with this group, no doubt.
Yeah, and I got to add to that too. It's not only on the players; you can also see it on the fan base a lot. Like you mentioned, on Twitter, you're seeing it. On the arena, you're seeing it. But I think it also passes on to the fan base. And again, personally, myself, I moved to Orlando in 2016. I've gone to every game since then. I haven't gone to Amway with this level of excitement since the playoffs in 2009. That,
Mhm.
at 19, that's kind of the last time I remember being with this much buzz around this team. So again, if you add a top 3 pick to this team, some key free agency moves, so add some key veterans to this team. Again, I think the fan base is going to love it and be ready for what next season will look like.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
and I've said this before. Now is the perfect time for the Magic to kind of go through all of this, especially with the battles of Stephen Curry, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, that they're kind of up there in age. I mean,
Mhm.
we got really, really young 19 to 23-year-old players that, their ceiling is extremely, extremely high. And the way that the East is, I mean, you got the Boston Celtics playing in a play-in tournament. This was a
Right.
team that was, top 3 for the last couple of seasons. So to me, in my opinion, the East is wide open. And Al and we've had conversations about how long do we think that, it would take for the team to start competing at a high level again, to where, there's expectations to meet the playoffs. And I think that now with this play-in tournament structure, maybe fans might not have to wait as long as people think.
100%. Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm being too optimistic, but I think if the Magic are healthy next year, they could be the 10th seed. Like, why not? Just from the last few games of the season, it was like, obviously we wanted to tank, but I was like, damn, these guys might win. These guys might win every like single night.
Yeah, every
Like Cole
every single
Anthony
one.
just taking over games. I'm like, dude, like, so imagine when you
Slow
get,
down a little bit.
yeah, man. Then imagine you add like, let's say Kate Cunningham or even any talent from the draft that's like, going to contribute. And then you add Markel Fultz, who's definitely going to contribute. Jonathan Isaac, who definitely going to contribute. You know what I mean? Like we already know that those guys make us instantly better. You know what happens with Cole and Isaac and Chuma and Carter Jr. and our draft? It's like, hey, like we'll be slept on and it'll definitely be like, maybe being a little over optimistic because we just haven't seen it yet. I feel good about it, man. I could see us being in it, and I want them to. I don't want to tank next year, man. I don't want these guys to be like looking for another. We're already too young, like we don't need any more young guys. I think this group like should just compete every night, try to figure it out together.
Yeah, and it sure seems like these guys want to compete, right? You got RJ going at it on Instagram. You
Yeah,
got Paul Anthony going at it with Twitter fans saying like, "Hey,
yeah.
we want to win. We're not here to tank." So I think when
Mhm.
you get those guys healthy next season, and you again, hopefully we keep the vets. I really hope we keep either Terrence Ross or Harris. We need vets, and Walton said that on the interview that there will be vets with this team.
Mhm.
Um, that those guys can help us, take it to the next level and win some games. I
Mhm.
think the young guys that we have are hungry to win, and they know the fan base is hungry to win. So I think all
Mhm.
that kind of adds up together to this team again, probably competing for a 10th seed or maybe even better next season if health
I think
is
so.
there.
Yeah,
That's the key.
I'd agree, 100%. It depends on who those vets are, but I don't mind going to next season with just having Terrence Ross, James Ennis, and Gary Harris and MCW. Uh, I think those guys like are willing to uh, step out of the way of those young guys. It's not like when you sign like or trade for like a Serge Ibaka and it's like it's my team now type of thing. I think we have good vets who will just like nourish our young guys and like teach them and contribute when they need to hit shots and play defense.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the vets that we have, they still embody that heart and hustle spirit. The
Mhm.
Terrence Ross, MCWs, James Ennis is probably the most grittiest guy that we have on the team. So he's unless you're going to replace him with someone that's even grittier. I mean, I feel like he's you don't get rid of your enforcer.
No, he
So
sets a great example.
I think the vets that we have, they're a good group. now Weltman in his interview, he did mention that they'll keep an eye on free agency, and they plan to go they plan to be aggressive on whatever free agents are considered to be the best fit. Now, in that interview, he also mentioned that after the offseason, or when the offseason started, they kind of kicked everybody out. Told everyone to stay away from the Orlando Magic, stay away from NBA. I want you to be out for at least 2 weeks, and then we can come back and kind of regroup. And primarily that was it sounded like it was pointed towards Coach Clifford. With such a tough season, because even Coach Clifford had mentioned that this was probably his hardest and most challenging season he's ever coached before in his entire history in his career in coaching basketball. Do you still see him as the head coach of the Orlando Magic for next season? There's been a lot of talks, a lot of the fan base, they're kind of, they're looking for a new voice. And it's been tough. Cliff didn't sign up for this. He signed up for a playoff team. And, that's obviously not what he got after building the team to finally get there.
I think he should be there next year. I don't know I don't know what that's like. I honestly don't see why Jeff Weltman wouldn't want him there, unless Clifford is just upset with with how things went last year, trading away his top veterans, and just him being in a place where he has to teach guys how to play in a sense. So if Clifford's on board, I think that's great, because he's a great coach for this kind of team that needs to learn habits, learn discipline. My only issues with Clifford are, just the way he runs his players, minutes wise. But I don't really know till this day if that's a product of Clifford and his rotations, or the medical staff and what they ask from him. I don't know. That's one. And the other thing would be when he plays vets over young guys. But I don't think we're going to have that problem. And in fact, I think the opposite will happen, which is when you have a bunch of young guys, the young guys are just going to have to outplay the young guys. You know what I mean? It's not like anyone's taking your spot. You're just going to have to prove why you should be playing over the other 22-year-old. It's not like the seasoned vet who's 29 is going to come and take your spot. So I think it's good. I think he'll make you earn playing time, is basically what I'm trying to say. And, I hope he's here next season. I think he's a good coach for this team. Unless, which I don't foresee this happening. I think all the players respect Clifford. Unless there's a situation where the team is turned off from him and wants a new voice. But I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening. I think all these guys really want to win. I don't think anyone's out here just not wanting to hear what they did wrong. I think they're all pretty receptive to him.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the debate that we've been having, me and Ant, over the last few episodes. Kind of how do we move on? Do we follow the, again, one thing with the Magic historically has been, we move on from a lot of coaches, right? Through this rebuild, we give him 1 year, 2 years, then we kick him out. So Cliff been here 3 years now. The question is still, do an extension? And that's kind of where they're at right now. It's not only next season, it's do we extend them past that? And I will guarantee you that any coach heading into a new season would want to have a guaranteed contract beyond that season. So that's kind of what the issue, I think, in my opinion, is with the Magic right now. And like you mentioned, does he want to lead a team filled with young guys at this particular moment? Does that fit what he likes to do? So I can kind of see it from both ways. The Magic would definitely benefit from him being here, simply because we need structure. We need a coach to be here longer than 2 to 3 years. It would help our team. But I can also see where it may not fit the coaching style that he has and what he wants to accomplish as a head coach. So it'll be interesting. I think over the next 2 weeks, when the players and the team coaches come back from their trip or their vacations, it'll be exciting to see what the announcements come out. Do we extend them, or is it going to be the Magic have made a decision and they move on from the coach at that point?
I think he should get extended for at least 3 years. I think we can cross that road in a few years from now and see how things are. Look, even if you get extended, you're still viable to get fired, if things hit the fan. So I think an extension would be good. Maybe take the stress off him a little bit if the team's losing a lot, let him know that, hey, we understand it's not your coaching, it's just the result of the roster, which he should probably already know that. But, I think you bring back Clifford, man. I think of all the coaches we've watched, the last, since Stan Van Gundy got fired, I mean,
Brutal.
no one makes the guys compete as much as he does, and
That's
we
right.
we saw it, right? So, and that's what you want from these young guys. You want to get them to compete. You don't want them to be distracted, and get away with bad habits. I think that's the biggest thing about Clifford, that he like hates like seeing players do what they know they're not supposed to do, and he grills them on that, and that's the best thing you could have for like a young player.
Yeah, and I think that one of the biggest flaws and biggest mess ups that we had was during the development processes with Oladipo and Fournier, Aaron Gordon, that the young core that we had. They had so many coaches. There was zero consistency, different voices, different schemes, different plans that they had to learn.
Hmm.
So it hurts the development of those players. Me personally, I would love Coach Cliff back. I hear everyone's concerns with the rotation, and you brought up a really good point. Is it really Cliff? Is it the medical staff? Is it the front office? So many different things, but
Hmm.
there's some pros to that also. Players know when they're expected to play. The problem with that is that when you have players playing well, why are we taking them out the game?
Yeah,
So
that.
those are legitimate concerns.
Hmm.
But I don't know. I'm having a tough time handling that, and not from a front office perspective, but more from Coach Clifford deciding not to. He already had health issues before we brought him on. This is only going to add more stress. If you're going to leave a team, now would be the time to leave the team if he doesn't want to
Hmm.
kind of foresee the rebuild. And truthfully, if he still has aspirations to want to keep coaching, no one is going to fault him for this past season um,
Hmm.
with his tenure for the Magic. So another team would they would be interested in Coach Clifford. But
Frank
in
Vogel's
my
coaching the Lakers, so
it,
hey.
it exactly my point. And you know what's crazy about that you brought that up is that great Coach Vogel won a championship with the Lakers in the bubble. Amazing. But if I remember correctly, a lot of the posts or the exit interviews from the Aaron Gordons and other players was the fact that they didn't feel as if Coach Vogel held players accountable,
Hmm.
and that was a major flaw. That's not the case with Coach Clifford. Coach Clifford is like the ultimate, I'm gonna humble your ass down because
Hmm.
he even with players that we thought were playing all right, he would tell them straight up, you guys played terrible. There was only
Yep.
one player that played well today, and it was Chasing Randall. He'll
Yeah.
say he'll say stuff like that. So I hope he comes back.
Yeah.
And I do hope that, health wise and just having such a young team doesn't discourage him because I think that this young team really needs a voice like Coach Clifford.
No, I 100% agree, and I think you brought up a great point about continuity. Markel Fultz already has been like in Steve Clifford's playbook for like what, 3 years now. Like,
Hmm.
he's probably going to be able to contribute right away because of that, because he knows what to do, and I think there's something to uh, like a coach being there longer than the players because it's like, hey, you're coming into my
Yeah.
system.
That's
I'm
true.
not like you're not introducing me to your team. Like this is essentially
Right.
my team. You're gonna play our way, or it's not gonna work out for you here. So, and I think that's important just to have like a culture. Look how long Eric Spoelstra has been in Miami, um, and look when like a guy like Hassan Whiteside didn't mesh with what he wanted. Like he was out of there, and the guys who stay there all play well. And they develop guys. I mean, look at Duncan Robinson and Tyler Harrow and like these guys. That's what we should have here. We should have like a culture here to where like this is how we play. We compete. You're gonna get called out for your mistakes, and he demands the best out of players. So yeah, man, I don't think he should go anywhere.
I completely agree. Now, going back to the young guys for a second, I did want to ask you, out of all the young guys that we have now on our roster, again, there's so many of them, right? We got Chuma, you got Cole Anthony, you got RJ Hampton, all these young guys that we have now. I'm gonna throw out there too, Markel and Ji. Who is the one guy that to you personally excites you the most to have on our team?
I think Markel Fultz excites me the most. Um, I think just the way he plays the game, it's like um, it's like this mix of just like unselfishness, like doesn't do anything wrong almost, but also has flash, right? So like usually when guys are in that role where they're just like playing their role, like not doing too much, they're usually, not, they're just like boring players almost, but he's not, he's running up and down the floor, making great passes, getting guys good shots, but also not like trying to take over the game. Although sometimes we want him to, but you know what I mean? Like he just fun to watch, man. I love I respect the way he plays the game. I'll put it that way. And I don't care if he can't shoot the ball yet. Like it's getting there. And I'd say a close second is Chuma Okiki, pretty much for the same reasons. It just he plays unselfish. He plays to win. He doesn't. You could tell he does not care about his own stats. Um, and I love to watch guys like that. And it's also funny how he doesn't have any facial expression. He just like dunks on Andre Drummond and just like, okay, next play. So
Yeah.
I enjoy that a lot for sure.
I'm not sure if you guys listened to the T Ross podcast today. I think came out a new episode, and they talked about Chuma Okeke. He was their guest, and they talked about on the team, on the locker room. They compare him to Paul Pierce, Chuma that is, but Terrence Ross compares him to a lighter or a smaller Kawhi Leonard. So I want to get both of you guys' thoughts on that. Do you see more Paul Pierce or do you see more Kawhi Leonard in Chuma's game?
Yeah, that's tough. I don't see Paul Pierce because I just find Paul Pierce so corny. Like hopefully they're talking about maybe the type of play, but I really don't see similar play styles. I just find Paul Pierce corny. Kawhi Leonard, I can see it. I wouldn't say that Chuma Okeke is socially awkward. I feel like Kawhi Leonard is socially awkward. I think that Chuma Okeke is just he's a shy kid, man. He's a shy kid embracing this brand new world. His entrance into the NBA was very unorthodox, where he was kind of redshirted for a year in the G League. And I'll be honest with you, Nabil, I was kind of like you. I really don't pay much attention to the draft unless we're like in the lottery. This season I'm paying attention to it. But the season when we drafted Chuma Okeke, I'm like, Chuma who?
Yeah, same.
Who is
I
this
think
guy?
all of us were like, what the heck?
What?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I had my like top 5 list of who I wanted us to draft, and then the Magic do what they always do, and they do like the complete opposite of what you want them to want them to do. And when they drafted him, I'm like, man, I can't. What? Like his name is like funky. Like he names a kid, Chuma Okeke, and man, this dude has been such a the level of play from Cole Anthony, Chuma Okeke, their early made us or made me forget, that we were missing Jonathan Isaac and Markelle Fultz. Obviously, we know that they're a big piece of it, but just in terms of being able to enjoy watching the game, and my whole thought process of kind of where we're at right now, even with the draft process, is when we do get Jonathan Isaac and Markelle Fultz back, just because, especially with Jonathan Isaac, we've seen so much Orlando Magic basketball without him due to injury, that whatever and whenever they're able to get onto the court, I see that as a full-on bonus. And just because we know that they have a high ceiling, that, man, I really, really honestly believe that, this team can be really dangerous.
100%. I think that, like I don't want to put like bad juju on Isaac, but like I think, like you said, this team's already pretty good even without him playing. And when he comes back, I mean, like Orlando, I see them being one of the best defenses in the league. I mean, Wendell Carter Jr. already has shown like he's a rim protector. He's not afraid to like, be physical with any center in the league. Chuma Okeke is like guarding. I know he didn't play too bad, but when Chuma was guarding Anthony Davis, I felt like he was doing as best of a job he can. I really, really like was impressed with what I saw from him that night. And I think, I mean, I don't know what they say to each other after the game, but like Anthony Davis like pulled him over and like talked to him after the game for a second. I'm gonna guess it was like, hey, like you weren't too bad out there. You know what I mean? I think he's respected as a defender, and between him and Isaac and Wendell, that front court is pretty good defensively.
Yeah, and just to think that at one point we're gonna be able to see Jonathan Isaac and Chuma on the court together,
Exactly.
at the same time.
Yeah,
wearing the same uniform.
Exactly.
That's just super exciting.
100%.
Now, you mentioned a little bit earlier that you really haven't been following the prospects in the draft.
Mhm.
You know a lot of the main names, and you kind of rely on Magic Twitter to kind of support you in that field. But we all at least know the top five. Everyone is saying that this is a 5-man draft.
Right.
Um, what prospects do you like? In a few moments, we're going to do the simulation on tankathon.com to kind of see where we land, and then get to play the general manager role for a few minutes. But what prospect do you like that you would want the Magic to kind of take on?
To be honest, I think anyone who, for me, it's like a positional kind of thing where it's like who no one's gonna jump false spot for point guard right now. I don't think. I don't want to see that happen. I'll put it
Mhm.
that way. And I don't want to get another big man. I'm content with what we got. And so it just comes on who are the shooting guards available, and it just so happens to be that Suggs, and I think Jalen Suggs is guard forward, and Jalen Green is a guard, and Kay Cunningham. I mean, he's like a point guard, shooting guard, but he could play off the ball too. Um, we're really lucky that those three guys are like at the top of the draft, and they just so happen to all be great fits for what this team has already. So I hope we come away with one of those guys. I've seen some Magic fans mention Mobley. Um, but like I could totally see Jeff Weltman doing that.
Yeah,
But I really hope
I
he
can
does
see
it.
it also. I
Yeah,
can
that
see it
that
also, and
that's been
it's
a that's been a
that
fight what we're
yeah.
having
Yeah,
for the last few weeks.
It's
yeah,
weird. And really, if it wasn't for you know, seeing Wendell Carter play as well as he has, I would be
hmm
open to it. Just because,
right,
you have your Mo Bamba concerns. Wendell Carter is solid. Like he's
yeah,
super solid and can really
hmm
hold down that five. And you're hoping that okay, so if the Magic do decide to draft Mobley, you're hoping that he's a lot better than Wendell Carter.
hmm
But I did. Can we honestly say that's going to be right away, especially under Coach Clifford? You want to be able to add an impact player now, immediately,
right,
especially with this draft. And you bring up a really good point. Maybe there is a better point guard right now at this moment in the draft, but I don't want him to replace Markel. I don't want him to replace
right,
Cole Anthony. I'm okay. I'm satisfied. You remember when we were struggling to get a point guard and we really needed a point guard? Well, we got that. We got more than
exactly,
that. Leave the point
yeah,
guards alone. I don't want a big man either. So
yeah,
you're right. We're luckily in a position where there's some really elite prospects at that shooting guard position, and
yeah,
hopefully, because everyone's talking about you gotta draft best player available.
exactly, yeah,
But I
yeah.
mean, can we
John
can we
Hammond is
draft a good
like,
player and the one that has the best fit?
yeah, exactly, exactly, and like John, and not to say he's wrong, but John Hammond has said like several times because he's been here when we've had like a top five pick twice, and he's been here when we've had like a top 15 pick. And he says, like when you're that high in the draft, you draft best available. That's how you draft. When you're later in the draft, you draft positionally. And so I hope we put that aside. But again, like we've said a couple times now, those two things are like coinciding with best available and positional. Are with guys like Jalen Suggs and Jalen Green and Kay Cunningham. They both happen to fit both those categories. So. Um, Yeah, man, I'd be shocked if we didn't draft one of those three if we're lucky enough to be in that position. I've ran
Yeah,
that
that
tankathon a few times now, and man, I don't know, man. Like I literally got like 6 and 7, like 10 times in a row, and I
Yeah,
was like,
man.
oh, dude, I
It's
didn't realize the odds are pretty even now.
yeah, it's scary because there's been so many times, and I've limited myself to at least doing it just once a day. Because if you do it more than once, it's kind of cheating a little bit. You're just gonna keep doing it
Yeah,
until you
exactly,
you get what you like to see. But
exactly.
it's scary because there's no guarantee yet that we're gonna have two picks. There's no
hmm
guarantee. Something crazy could happen.
hmm
Where we're just hoping that with all the bad luck that we've had, I think is time to give us a little
Yeah,
baby
man.
luck on our side.
yeah,
Yeah,
I keep
we
saying
deserve good lottery luck.
Yeah, I keep saying, after the season that we had, all the injuries, we hosted the bubble here in Orlando. The basketball
Hmm.
gods owe us a little something. I think this should be a good year for us. I hope, because again, like you mentioned, I've done the same thing. I've done some simulations, and unfortunately, we end up in the 6th, 7th spot. And I'm like, man, like, that cannot happen to us. I
It's the
mean,
worst.
again,
It's the
there's
worst.
a lot of good players in the draft, but still, no, we need one of those top 3.
Yeah,
So
100%.
speaking of that, so let's play the simulation here real quick. We're calling the segment "Let's Play the Lottery." It's our first time
Okay.
doing this in the show, so let me bring it up on the screen here. So here we are. So we have the Tankathon pulled up. Magic, third best odds in the draft. So let's run it and see what happens. And then the idea here behind it is we're gonna put you on the spot and say, if you're running this team, what do you do in that scenario?
Let's do it.
So let's simulate it
Yeah,
here.
and then just for perspective, we're going
Ooh,
to
Oh,
also I'm going to go based on NBADraft.net for the player selection where it's at. So now just
okay.
looking at it, just press a button for those that are not watching on YouTube. I'm going to wow, this is why I only do it once a day. So we
Terrible.
have Cleveland with the number 1 pick. Cleveland Cavaliers again with the number 1 pick. You got Sacramento 2, Detroit 3. Is that Minnesota or is that
Minnesota
going
that
to
goes
Golden
to
State?
Golden State. So Golden State gets that.
All right, so Minnesota going to Golden State at 4. We have 5 Houston, and then 6. The Orlando Magic select 6, and then the 10th pick. So we have 6 and 10. So what this really means, Nabil, is that Kate Cunningham off the board, and Mobley, Jalen Green is off the board, Jalen Suggs is off the board, and Jonathan Kuminga is also off the board. And I know that you mentioned that you only pay attention to the top 5. Is there anything outside of the top 5, the 6 through 10, that really stands out to you, or that you've heard?
Nope. And I'm gonna do all I can to package that 6th pick and that 10th pick and Mo Bamba and try to get in that top 3, man.
And you know what? That's also probably the only thing that's given me or allowed me to have a little piece is the way that I view the Chicago Bulls pick is that is our security blanket, and we have enough pieces
Hmm.
if need be that we can include in any type of package. Now, if we didn't do that,
Yep. Yep.
and a friend of mine kind of put me on it because I was the same way. I only cared about the top 5 because I'm so positive that the Magic are going to have a top 3 pick in this draft. But a player that he really liked that
Hmm.
I'm starting to become a fan of is Keon Johnson out of Tennessee. So he's supposed to be the elite shooting guard outside of the top 5. And then if you're not familiar with Keon Johnson, on NBADraft.net, they have him as his NBA comparison to Latrell Sprewell.
Huh.
So
Well, I'll say this, and I've said this before on my Twitter, that like every single draft, you know, there's those guys you hype up, and like I said, like they don't turn out to be all that they were hyped up to be, and then you get these
Mhm.
guys who not only become good role players but stars. I mean, look at Steph Curry, 7th pick, T-Mac, 7th pick. Dirk was like I think 6th or somewhere late in that, like
yeah,
8. I don't really
Giannis.
remember, but Kobe 13th, Clay 11th, Jimmy Butler was a late first round pick, Draymond Green was a second round pick. I mean, the list goes like on and on and on. Giannis Antetokounmpo 15th pick, and so you know, look, man, like you never know. Um, that 6th pick or 10th pick, Donovan Mitchell, could end up being like someone that you regret passing on. So it's a tough spot. And if the Magic feel like there's someone in that, I mean, that's their job, right? Got these guys scouting like crazy, and they'll be doing their homework at the combine in Chicago. And if they feel confident about someone in that 6 to 10 range, if this happens, hopefully it doesn't. But if it happens, then I think you go with that. But if they don't, um, I think they're going to do all they can to get in that top 3, trying to trade up. And I don't think they'll be afraid to add Mo Bamba. And I think we mentioned this before on Twitter, maybe even add RJ Hampton. But since I said that, he's won Rookie of the Month and it's taken off. So
No,
I don't know.
I don't.
It's
I don't. How do you risk that? Right now, we're looking at Denver. Like why? What? Who? Why? Whose idea was that? Who gave the green light? You know, so
Man,
it
honestly,
would be hard.
yeah, finessing them out of RJ and Gary for Aaron, like, it's just hilarious, man. Everyone was hyping up like the AG trade in their favor, and it's like I literally Aaron Gordon. I've
No.
never seen him get so much publicity for like actual basketball, not the dunk contest. Like I've just never seen it, and I'm like, yo, what happened? And you turn on the game, and he's not doing anything that crazy. He's literally just like making cuts to the basket, maybe getting a rebound, maybe hitting a corner three. I'm like, bro, he did this here all the time. And then the funniest part is that like like maybe like 2 or 3 weeks out from the end of the season, I would search like Aaron Gordon on Twitter, and dude, these Nuggets fans have literally the same complaints. I don't mean to like hate on Aaron. I really don't hate him. I love his when he played for us. I don't really care what he had to say, but it just the irony of the situation is just like hilarious. Like they literally are making the same complaints that we did about how he's like taking ill-advised shots and like not letting Jokic run the offense sometimes. And so I don't know. I'm happy to have RJ Hampton. He took off last month, and I think Gary Harris is a great 3 and D guy. So yeah, I'm not ready to throw those guys away. I think the only thing with RJ is just that when you talk about fit, I'm not sure how good he is off the ball. I think he's a guy when he has the ball, he's hard to guard. He could dribble a little bit, he could shoot a little bit. He beats guys to the basket like every single time. He's really impressive with the ball in his hands. I don't know what role he has here though. That's the thing. Like if Markel's your starting point guard and Chuma's a starting small forward and Isaac is power forward and Wendell Carter is your center. Is he the starting shooting guard? Is he the sixth man off the bench? Just that role that you and then imagine you have RJ and you draft Cade Cunningham, and now Cade is like your starting shooting guard. Well, then RJ is definitely coming off the bench. But like, you know, we don't need to necessarily like close on that. If like Cole Anthony and RJ Hampton are like your backcourt off the bench, I mean, that's pretty good. So I don't know. It's just about fit, really. And you have so many young guys. It's like, where does he go? Does he flourish here? Obviously, he was rookie of the month last month. We have to factor in the fact that he got so much
Mhm.
usage. So that's my only question mark about him is just can he flourish off the ball? Can he flourish not being the primary guy? That's the only thing I wonder about him sometimes.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think
and it. Yeah, go
as
ahead.
a I was gonna say as a team right now, that's the issue. So if you think about the backcourt, there's so many pieces there, right? Players that can
Hmm.
play right away. Like again, you don't even mention Terrence Ross and Gary Harris, who are vets
There you
that will
go.
need minutes, right? Then you
Yep.
add to that, then okay, what about the front court? Okay, you
Hmm.
got Wendell Carter Jr., Mo Bamba, Chuma, Ji. So it's like, all right, something's gotta happen to make all
Yep.
these pieces fit. And the
Yeah.
thing,
Has to happen.
the ideal thing is though, again, we have so many pieces, also assets, talking about draft picks, salary
Hmm.
cap space, that we can make some moves to our advantage.
Yeah.
So if this scenario were to play out in the lottery, we could say, hey, take those two picks, take whatever, whether it be Terrence Ross, Gary Harris, Mo Bamba, and let's
Right.
move up. And maybe one of those teams wants to take that package. But it'll be interesting. The good thing is we have pieces to play with to make something
Right.
happen.
Right. And I think it's definitely fair to say that it's like too early to just like trade RJ. Like you just got him and he's playing well.
Right.
And even when you talk about like, oh, but you got Markel and Cole and possibly Cade or Jalen and how does RJ fit into that? It's like, I think next season is gonna be a bit of like, okay, show and prove. Who should we keep and who should we like think about moving on from? And I think that's just how it goes, and we'll find out next season when we watch the games. Like, okay, like this guy's a keeper, and maybe this guy doesn't fit. So it may be too early to move him this summer, but like you just said, something has to happen. This roster definitely has like an obvious need for a trade of some sort. There's just no way all these guys end up sticking around. I don't think so.
Yeah, and I think that's the part that it's a little scary for him because if you're adding two brand new rookies to your team after a
Hmm.
season where we had 3 rookies that we added. If you're adding Chuma into the mix with RJ Hampton, Cole Anthony, that's a lot of young players. How are you able to develop all of them? If you're adding 2 additional high level elite prospects, to that mix. So it's going to be interesting because you're right. Someone's going to be the odd man out. And if that's the case, how do you figure that out?
Yeah, let's hope we don't get it wrong this time. Trading
Right,
Depot and Harris, man.
Yeah,
that's the kind of stuff that like just goes through my head when I think about, should we trade RJ? It's like, oh my God, he's gonna end up being Depot somewhere, and we're just gonna have deja vu. It's just
and that's the story of the Orlando Magic. How many times have we done it? History has shown that we tend to do that pretty often.
Exactly, yeah. It's tough, man. It's a tough spot to be in if you're Jeff Walt, man, no doubt.
Yeah, but I think that we've gotten to a point, and I think that, in my opinion, this trade deadline really saved this front office, at least from a fan perspective, because they really didn't get any type of respect. But now they've put us in a position where, man, we got assets, like to a point that if we really wanted to, and things didn't go right in Brooklyn, we could probably trade for James Harden. Look what Houston got
That'd
for
be
James
crazy.
Harden. We have enough young pieces. We have all our futures. We have the great position, knock on wood, for this draft. That we're in a really nice spot. Like it's a good time. And Jeff Woolman said in his interview, it's a good time to be a Magic fan. If you're gonna jump on the bandwagon, do it now while we're starting from scratch.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. I'm excited to be a fan. I'm most excited I've been in a while. There was something about, even when we'd make the playoffs with Booch and Ross and Gordon and Fournier, it just felt like, okay, well, what's the end game here? Like how far can this team really go? And I couldn't get over that. I don't think any fans could really get over that. It was always a civil war on Magic Twitter, just about like, yeah, I know we made the playoffs, but like, you think this team's gonna win a championship? And to be fair, like that was a valid point at that time, and it really did come to, like to be the case when trading them this trade deadline, and I'm happy to be in a new direction with this group in particular.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we'll see what happens, man. That's the crazy part, is that we end the season now, and then we got 1 month till we find out about the lottery, and then the following month we have the NBA draft, and then shortly after, now they've announced that there's going to be some summer league basketball, so that's going to be really, really fun to watch. And I just want to put this out on the record that there's no chance that the Magic are not winning the summer league championship. Like there's no chance.
They have to.
No chance.
I hope so, man. But at the same time, I don't want to see anyone get injured, dude.
Yeah, take it easy.
True.
But that's just the nature of the game, man. You got to go play. You can't like sit out and rest. I mean, but at the same time, it's like I don't really care to win the summer league championship. You know what I mean? So if it means like limiting minutes, let's limit minutes. But it's good exposure for those guys, and I think you got to just let them go. And I don't know, whatever the problem is with this team with injuries, I hope, whether it's bad luck, let's hope that just goes away. And if it's the medical staff that's the problem, I hope they make tweaks. I hope they're real with themselves and look in the mirror and say, is it us? Are we doing something? And I hope that's the case, because look, you never know. You shouldn't just assume that like you're right, and like, oh no, it's not us. You never know. Maybe some little tweak can change things, because the amount of injuries we had was like pretty absurd.
Yeah, we can only blame it on luck so much, having bad luck. That can only be someone at some point. Somebody needs to be held accountable for it.
That's right.
Yeah. All right, so Nabil, we're going to wrap this up in just a few moments. Before we do, we want to do a quick fire drill. Pretty simple. Okay. I'm going to ask you some quick questions. I want some quick answers. All right?
Got it.
All right, first one, Dwight or Shaq?
I'm going to say Dwight, just because that's who I watched when he was here. I was way too young to watch Shaq, even though I like Shaq more as a player, and I like his personality and all that. It has to be Dwight. I watched him take us from the worst team in the league to the final, so it has to be Dwight.
I see. I agree with you. T-Mac or Vince Carter? I already know the answer
T-Mac.
to this one.
Yeah, we know the answer.
You
to
already
that.
know. Easy.
All right. Orange uniforms or blue uniforms?
Ooh. Which ones? Which blue ones are we talking about?
We'll go with our jerseys now.
The earned edition.
Not the
Oh,
earn. Our association.
orange for sure. Although
Good
I
choice.
wish
Good
the
choice.
orange ones were actually orange. The orange.
I know.
True.
All right. Pinstripes or T-Mac Harn Hustle Stars? That's a tough
Man,
one.
I have like an attachment to those stars. You know,
I'm
like
saying.
the pinstripes definitely look nicer, 100%. The whole league has mimicked those pinstripes.
Yep.
But the stars, man, I'm gonna go with the stars because I got a connection to the stars, and I really hope they bring those back, like just for like throwback nights at some point.
Yeah, and they
I
did a
got.
really good job with their earned uniforms.
They
I
did.
love that they threw those on the sides. I wish they incorporated those stars even more into those earned jerseys because those are fly.
And I'm hoping that their earned uniforms is kind of their segue to it. Now, let me ask you:
Yeah.
would it be too much if we incorporated both? Can we get the stars and the pinstripes, or is that like too much going on in one time?
Too much going on for
Is
sure.
that too much? Is that just me?
Yeah, I think
Because
there's too much
I'm
going
I'm
on.
torn between the two also.
Um, I don't know, like maybe someone get creative with it, but it has to come out clean. You know, it can't be too much going on.
Yeah, that,
Yeah.
that may be too much.
Maybe if like the numbers have pictures, I don't know. I don't know.
I
All
got,
right,
I got,
last
I got
one.
one more for him before we wrap up.
You got one? Okay, so
I
you
got
tell me
one
that one
more.
and I got one more.
Just because
Okay.
we've debated this ourselves a few times in our podcast, so let's get another perspective. Mo Bamba or Wendell Carter Jr.
Oh, Wendell Carter Jr.
Oh, come on now. Come on
Okay,
now.
we're gonna
right.
ask our Magic fans.
NBA Finals. Jameer Nelson, Ray Rawson.
Ooh,
Oh, Ray for Alston.
Just get to
I
my knee,
mean,
baby.
that hurts till this day.
Yeah, it does. It
Like
does.
I love Jameer. I love Jameer. But like, man, shouldn't have never happened. That he should have just
Yeah.
kept that role, and we should have just rolled with the Rafer, man. He had it going.
Yeah, can we go back in time? Can we just like play Ray for Austin more, Jameer Nelson less in that finals, and then can we have Courtney Lee catch that alley layup and kind of just finish it? We've done that. That would have been
Pain,
great.
pain.
Nabil, thank you so much for joining us, man. It was an absolute pleasure. Feel free to drop your Twitter handle. Your Twitter handle. What's your
Hey,
Twitter
follow
handle?
me at _Lando on Twitter, man. Haven't been as active lately, but like I'm always chiming in with something. So follow me on there.
yeah. If you're a Magic fan, you have to follow him. So make sure that you go out there and follow him for sure.
Appreciate that,
The
man. Thanks for
Lando.
having me on, guys.
It's a wrap. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the OZone Podcast, the voice of Magic fans. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the OZone Pod. And remember to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on all your favorite podcast listening platforms.